So picking up where we left off, when Disney Plus first got released, I had an idea. And that idea was that Disney Plus should very quickly offer something that uniquely belongs to Disney, that Netflix doesn't have and isn't thinking about. Although Netflix could do something like this. Universal is not thinking about this. They could do it, but they're not thinking about it either. Nobody's thinking about this. And I think it's a shame, because all of the big companies involved in the streaming world have an opportunity to do something with their streaming services that literally no one has done yet. And it boggles my mind why this hasn't been thought of yet, or why it hasn't been done yet. And it starts with VR. I know you're thinking, VR, oh, this is some stupid metaverse stuff. This is something that Zuckerberg will come up with. Yeah, I get what you're saying, but hear me out here. I'm going to call them three major players right now, even though there are many more, but the big three have a reason for being the big three in my mind. You have Netflix. Netflix is sort of the king of content. They will just pump out constant barrages of shows and movies and experiences. Or do they? And when I say experiences, I'm like, okay, well, you can watch a comedy show. Well, okay, you can watch this nature documentary. There are experiences that you can get on Netflix, but not many. Universal has a lot of content. They have an incredible history in the film industry. And one thing that they also have, that Disney has, is parks. They have Universal Studios. They have Islands of Adventure. They run theme parks. And they have a pretty good partnership with Nintendo as well, so you would think that that would be a part of this. Okay, we'll come back to that. Then you have Disney. One of the core businesses of Disney, well, the two major cores are travel and entertainment, I would say. Travel because they have the theme parks and the cruise line, and entertainments because they have the Walt Disney Studios and the theme parks. Those two operate in sort of synergy, especially with the theme parks and their entertainment wing. The cruise less so, but it's sort of an extension of their theme parks as well, because you have places like Aulani, Vero Beach. Disney properties and parks extend sort of beyond the parks. They encourage you to travel and get out some. One thing I was really excited about with Disney Plus is that they were going to have Nat Geo on it. And I thought that was amazing. Like, if any of the big three had something that was sort of a hidden gem, it was the National Geographic part of it. And this is right up Disney's alley. Disney loves to push an environmental green world message. That's just a core part of their branding. But none of the three add any experiences to their streaming service. And that sort of confused me. Like, why not? A lot of families now have a VR helmet, or at least ways to get cheap VR. I mean, you can get the Google Cardboard or some cheap headset that you can plug your phone into. I mean, it works okay. But most people have access to VR now. And I've sort of been, I think a lot about how close we are to having an actual holodeck be possible. I mean, all the technology is actually there to make a holodeck right now. It's just unfocused, a little expensive, and not quite perfected yet. But most of the technologies are actually there to make it happen. It's not going to be exactly like Star Trek, but if you wanted to walk into a sports event, like say the WWE, you could. All you need is cameras in the right spot and a designated seat for your virtual viewer to sit in, and you could sit in an actual WWE event if you wanted to. And I think that how that doesn't exist right now blows my mind. There's something that Peacock could be doing right now that is just a wasted opportunity every day it's not taken advantage of. Because all it takes is a little bit of processing power and a few strategically placed cameras, and you've got an experience that would be unrivaled by any of the other streaming services. I am surprised that Netflix hasn't gone out and done this to get you into like a Taylor Swift concert. You know, Netflix has a lot of money to throw around. They need the novelty. They need the draw. They need to get people in with a big ticket show, but they do it with a new movie. You know, Knives Out 2 is not the same as walking into a concert. Why are they not offering this? But Disney has access to so many park ideas. And if you actually go to their parks, you would see how many rides, even the new ones that are coming out, could actually kind of work at home. If you had a VR helmet, you could put it on, or headset. Why did I say helmet? I'm thinking of the Dark Ages. You know, we had VR once before. But if you put on a VR headset, you could go through Pirates of the Caribbean at home. You just wouldn't be on water. And really, you're just sitting there on the ride. It doesn't like fall and get you wet except for like one small drop. There's really nothing to it. You know, Remy's Ratatouille adventure, it relies on, you know, some smoke and mirrors to make you think that you're smaller than you really are. But a VR headset could do half that. Soarin', if you want to feel like you're flying, you can put the headset on. You know, a lot of things just have one element. If you take away one element, it's just a video you're watching. And it's your perspective on what's happening around you. So I've been saying this for a while now, that within the first 5 years of Disney Plus, and I don't know how we're not hearing news of this, there really should be a virtual Disneyland experience. There should be VR capable videos where you put it on and you can watch a parade. You can watch the night show from a perfect view. You can go through Pirates of the Caribbean. And it doesn't have to be every experience, but Disney could have a specific wing of Disney Plus devoted to Disney parks experiences. And it would work well. Just get a dozen things on there, add a special thing here and there. You even have the footage and the technology to effectively rebuild Disneyland or Disney World from ages past. You know, the opening year of Disney World, I'm positive they have enough footage to cobble something together to give you the magic as if you were actually there. They could do this, but they're not. And that brings me to something else that I think Iger could do. This is less likely than a new park. I think a new park is actually very likely. It's just a question of how they do it. Universal's building a new park. There's a lot of pressure on Disney to come up with a way to alleviate the crowds and attract people back to them. And they're doing enough in their parks to expand on what they already have, but they're going to need a new park. So my ideas are just ideas on how they're going to do it. But it's not a question of if, it's a question of when. They will. This is a little far-fetched, but I think it's a really good idea, especially coming out of the pandemic. First, I touched on this with my park idea, and that's they have a lot of technologies that they're not using to their full potential. One of the things that they did when they created rides like Remy's Ratatouille Adventure and the Winnie the Pooh in Tokyo Disneyland is instead of putting people in the sky to have a really thrilling experience, they kept people on the ground and they made this experience more intimate. Keeping, I would imagine, I could be wrong here, there's a lot of mechanical things there, but they have a trackless design to where they basically, I don't know how it works, but if you think of it this way, they have a floor and the floor has sensors, maybe magnets, who knows, but it's like magnets gliding across, it's like ice hockey, actually. Air hockey. It's a lot like air hockey, except you have the vehicle with the ability to guide itself and twist itself and do things freely. All it needs to do is abide by some simple rules. Don't collide with another driver. Get to this point. Don't hit the edges. You know, it can effectively take its own route. You can ride Remy's Ratatouille Adventure 3 times, and you may not ride it the exact same way. You can't predict when the left turn's going to happen. You don't know if the left turn's going to happen. You don't know exactly where that left turn would be. You just know you're going in a general direction and you're going to make a stop and you're not going to bump into the car next to you. The trackless design is really cool and it's very flexible. Now, one thing that I was looking at that made me want to mention this was the US just came out of, the world came out of a pandemic. One thing's for sure, everybody wants to get out and have some experiences, but it's not necessarily available to everyone. Again, you're looking at thousands of dollars to get down to Disney World, to go to Disney World for a week. And Disney knows that there are people that would kill to do this, but they can't, whether they can't afford it or they can't make it, or traveling is very prohibited, or the pandemic left people with not much flexibility to make things happen in the near future. But Disney knows that everybody wants to come. Not necessarily to Disney, but to theme parks in general. They know that the American public is itching for experiences and to live. And one thing that's going on alongside that is the pandemic dealt an even bigger blow to retail. And it was already happening before the pandemic. The decline of the American mall has left just 700 still standing. Soon there may be just 150 left. And by that statistic, you pretty much know the mall that's in trouble in your area. I know my mall, it's the only one, is okay, but it's not doing all that well. We kind of have half a mall, but that's the one that's going to die. The inside's already hollow. It's a shell. It's basically a hall. There's not much mall to it, and everything that used to be there is now gone. The pandemic wiped it clean. The little mini malls, the ones that maybe had one row, or ones with indoor walking, and it was just 2 strip malls attached with a hall in between, those are going away. But if you're like me, you have that mall that is like 2 strip malls and a couple of big stores like a Cabela's or something attached with a hall interconnecting it all. If you want to walk on the inside, there's a couple little shops. There might be a pretzel place. There might be a 7-Eleven type store there now. And it leads you to a bigger store that used to be a Sears or a JCPenney's or a Dillard's or something that has long died out. And you're going to see a lot more of those because Macy's doesn't have long to go. JCPenney might not have that long to go. I mean, these big department stores are going away and the malls that house them are still going with them. You might be able to fill it up with other things, but those are going to die. It's not going to work. What do you do with all this space? And we've been talking about it for over a decade. What do you do? Some communities have renovated these into apartments, or at least I hope they are. That was being talked about for ages. But I always thought, malls are important to America. Malls get us out of the house. Malls are where we go to interact with the world around us, to see the things we're going to buy before we buy them, to learn about things we might not knew existed. I mean, you can click around Amazon all you want, but unless you walk into a store and something catches your eye that you were going to be interested in, you're not guaranteed to find it doing a little Amazon deep dive. You got to see and touch things. You got to go out and meet people. People need jobs. We can't just have every store sell to Amazon. It doesn't work that way. We need malls. But malls need some way to get you there. And a department store ain't it anymore. And we have all these that are either dying or dead already. You know the empty Sears lot in your area. So what do you do with them? Well, I always said that experiences are the way to get people in there. Convert these old things into places like Dave & Buster's, Round One. Give people a reason to go and do things at the mall. That's a first step. The second is we have all of these VR experiences, escape room experiences. We have old cinema that needs to be explored. Where's our retro theater that will show Indiana Jones on the screen? We don't have things like that commonly. Some of us are lucky to have these things near us. Not all of us are. But we have a lot of empty places we could put something like that in. With the technologies that Disney has at its disposal right now, they could effectively go on a US tour. Bring Disneyland to communities. They could take 4 caravans, each starting or taking a different route that covers America. And these caravans could have trackless ride designs and sensors that would allow them to work on regular floors or ways to convert the floors. You don't have to build a big roller coaster. You don't need Splash Mountain. Get those trackless designs in. You don't have to worry about the theming so much, but you have these neat technologies where you can project things. I mean, now if you go into a theme park, Universal has abused this principle so much, but you don't have to theme things when you can just show a screen that has the theming built in. And what I mean by that is when I went to Universal, I was actually shocked how much of the Minions ride was not themed in the things you touch around you. It wasn't in the waiting line. It was when you watched a video. They're like, hey, welcome to this Minions ride. You're going to be our new Minion. And you're watching this video. Whereas if you were at Disney, you'd be seeing all the signs around you. There's a clear winner when it comes to theming. Disney is just hands and foot above everybody else. Universal's got nothing. But Universal gets by on using screens to add to their immersion. There is enough cheap light projection technology out there, and Disney uses it themselves. You have this trackless design. Get the caravans and start sending them to malls. Bring Disneyland to the people. Make Remy's Ratatouille Adventure available in these mall places, like Sears. Take the empty lot, book them for 3 months, and just set up shop where you set up your light projection, you set up your screens, you set up some theming, not much. You plop these trackless go-karts down and you let them fly. And you don't just do one ride, you do a couple. You alternate. 1 week you do one ride, another week you do another. You flip it back and forth. You can do so many different rides. You could probably do Pirates of the Caribbean, Remy's Ratatouille Adventure, Winnie the Pooh, and that's just to start. You could do Soarin' pretty easily. And you could add some VR on top of that. Some 3D glasses would solve half the problems. VR would solve the rest. Just having people who are in, like, imagine that in the back of a shipping container, you just had one big boat or 2 big boats. And all the boats were sort of like, how Star Tours has that force feedback thing? You just have a couple of boats with this force feedback built into it, and you plop them down in the corner of one of these Sears. You give people VR helmets, and you just have the force feedback and the VR sync together to give people Pirates of the Caribbean or Soarin'. Just something mild, like a light version of the experience. You could set up food there as well. You could sell Disney churros. You could sell Disney cotton candy. You could sell Disney merch. You could quickly, and I'm not exaggerating here, you could probably crank out 6 to 8 rides and 4 attractions and 4 shows and 4 food stalls in the space of Sears. Even if you have to alternate, get people back in the door, but just call it what it is. $25, you're at Disneyland Light in your hometown, and you're not going to get the full experience, but this experience will make you happy. It's not going to break the bank. You're going to get to buy your Disney merch just as if you were in the park. And at the end of it, you're really going to want to go to Disneyland, aren't you? I think that if they did this and they took the next couple of years just sending 4 caravans across the country, going to a different town every month or 2, and setting up shop in these old malls, it could do so much good for the malls themselves, for Disney, because people want to go to Disney. And I think it would help revitalize some communities because you can hire a local team. You can create some jobs. You're going to bring some with you, obviously, with the caravan, but you can take people with you. You can train people to do Disney things. They have their Disney University. Why can't this be like an internship for that? You know, you're not exactly at the park, but this is close enough. And you send your Imagineers with them. Learn something about how you could do this better again. Bring that knowledge back to the park. Make the town some money. Make the malls survive a little bit. Show that solidarity with a post-pandemic America and the communities that need to survive in these retail storefronts. I think that this is something that is not only doable, but it's so workable and so lucrative for Disney to do this. They're already opening up Disney stores in random locations like at Targets and JCPenney's as well. So that it's not like they're unwilling to put themselves beyond the park to go set up these temporary shops. And temporary shops are actually kind of the future of these retail locations. One potential note of survival for the mall is to just have temporary shops and restaurants set up. Use a Japan model where you do pop-ups. That has worked for some malls. But I think the timing is right, and I think that with Iger at the helm, if they push this new park and this idea out there, and like I said, there's so much you can do with Disney Plus to bring it even closer to home, bring it to the actual home. I think this is an untapped point of potential for Disney, and I really hope they do it. But that's all I really have to say about that. I think I'm Disneyed out for the day. I'm going to go play me some video games, get back to my namesake. But thank you for sticking with me. Really, I don't do this to be professional. I just do this to shoot from the hip. I really wish that I had a background screen that you could look at or more interactivity with the video. But really, this is just me talking. If anybody out there is interested in Disney, I might be willing to do this with somebody else, have a more interactive approach to the format. I might not ever do this again, but this is my third video on Disney, so maybe we're looking at that. And I've got a lot of opinions on their news articles as well. I read these articles and they're just so blank and they're so uninspired. Hey, a Disney ride is up for refurbishment. What could it be? Well, there's a lot of good ideas that they're not saying. And I think that using social media to get at Disney to do better is worth doing. So if any of you Disney fans out there like the podcast format and would like to chat with me every now and then, maybe we can get something going. But for now, I'm just me, and this is what you get. Thank you for sticking around. I'll see you next time.